You wrote the first draft of a research paper, but later found that your advisor published the paper alone. Or you may have done most of the work, but your advisor only acknowledges your work in a thank you note. Have you heard of such stories? Are you suspicious of handing out your drafts because of such horror stories? In this talk, I address what is often called intellectual property. Like your real estate property, if you invented something, created something, wrote original ideas, then you clearly have intellectual property rights. Listen to the short version of the American Sociological Association Code of Ethics. Code 15. Authorship credit A. Sociologists take responsibility and credit, including authorship credit, only for work they have actually performed or to which they have contributed. B. Sociologists ensure that principal authorship and other publication credits are based on the relative scientific or professional contributions of the individuals involved regardless of their status. In claiming or determining the ordering of authorship, sociologists seek to reflect accurately the contributions of main participants in the research and writing process. C. A student is usually listed as principal author on any multiple authored publication that substantially derives from the student's dissertation or thesis. Let me move on and give you the guidance from the International Committee of Medical Journal Editors. 1. Why authorship matters. Authorship confers credit and has important academic, social, and financial implications. Authorship also implies responsibility and accountability for published work. The following recommendations are intended to ensure that contributors who have made substantive intellectual contribution to a paper are given credit as authors, but also that contributors credited as authors understand their role in taking responsibility and being accountable for what is published. Because authorship does not communicate what contributions qualified an individual to be an author, some journals now request and publish information about contributions of each person named as having participated in a submitted study, at least for original research. Editors are strongly encouraged to develop and implement a contributorship policy. Such policies remove much of the ambiguity surrounding contributions, but leave unresolved the question of the quantity and quality of contribution that qualify an individual for authorship. The ICMJE has thus developed criteria for authorship that can be used by all journals, including those that distinguish authors from other contributors. 2. Who is an author? The ICMJE recommends that authorship be based on the following 4 criteria. Substantial contributions to the conception or design of the work, or the acquisition, analysis, or interpretation of data for the work, and drafting the work or revising it critically for important intellectual content, and final approval of the version to be published, and agreement to be accountable for all aspects of the work in ensuring that questions related to the accuracy or integrity of any part of the work are appropriately investigated and resolved. In addition to being accountable for the parts of the work he or she has done, an author should be able to identify which co-authors are responsible for specific other parts of the work. In addition, authors should have confidence in the integrity of the contributions of their co-authors. All those designated as authors should meet all 4 criteria for authorship, and all who meet the 4 criteria should be identified as authors. Those who do not meet all 4 criteria should be acknowledged. These authorship criteria are intended to reserve the status of authorship for those who deserve credit and can take responsibility for their work. The criteria are not intended for use as a means to disqualify colleagues from authorship who otherwise meet authorship criteria by denying them the opportunity to meet criterion numbers 2 or 3. Therefore, all individuals who meet the first criterion should have the opportunity to participate in the review, drafting, and final approval of the manuscript. The individuals who conduct the work are responsible for identifying who meets these criteria and ideally should do so when planning the work, making modifications as appropriate as the work progresses. We encourage collaboration and co-authorship with colleagues in the locations where the research is conducted. It is the collective responsibility of the authors, not the journal to which the work is submitted, to determine that all people named as authors meet all 4 criteria. It is not the role of journal editors to determine who qualifies or does not qualify for authorship or to arbitrate authorship conflicts. If agreement cannot be reached about who qualifies for authorship, the institutions where the work was performed, not the journal editor, should be asked to investigate. The criteria used to determine the order in which authors are listed on the byline may vary and are to be decided collectively by the author group and not by editors. If authors request removal or addition of an author after manuscript submission or publication, journal editors should seek an explanation and signed statement of agreement for the requested change from all listed authors and from the author to be removed or added. The corresponding author is the one individual who takes primary responsibility for communication with the journal during the manuscript submission, peer review, and publication process. The corresponding author typically ensures that all the journal's administrative requirements, such as providing details of authorship, ethics committee approval, clinical trial registration and documentation, and disclosure of relationship and activities are probably completed and reported, although these duties may be delegated to one or more of the co-authors. The corresponding author should be available throughout the submission and peer review process to respond to editorial queries in a timely way and should be available after publication to respond to critiques of the work and cooperate with any requests from the journal for data or additional information should questions about the paper arise after publication. Although the corresponding author has primary responsibility for correspondence with the journal, the ICMJE recommends that editors send copies of all correspondence to all listed authors. When a large multi-author group has conducted the work, the group ideally should decide who will be an author before the work is started and confirm who is an author before submitting the manuscript for publication. All members of the group named as authors should meet all 4 criteria for authorship, including approval of the final manuscript, and they should be able to take public responsibility for the work and should have full confidence in the accuracy and integrity of the work of other group authors. They will also be expected as individuals to complete disclosure forms. Some large multi-author groups designate authorship by a group name with or without the names of individuals. When submitting a manuscript authored by a group, corresponding author should specify the group name if one exists and clearly identify the group members who can take credit and responsibility for the work as authors. The byline of the article identifies who is directly responsible for the manuscript, and Medline lists as authors whichever names appear on the byline. If the byline includes a group name, Medline will list the names of individual group members who are authors or who are collaborators, sometimes called non-author contributors, if there is a note associated with a byline clearly stating that the individual names are elsewhere in the paper and whether those names are authors or collaborators. 3. Non-author contributors. Contributors who meet fewer than all 4 of the above criteria for authorship should not be listed as authors, but they should be acknowledged. Examples of activities that, alone, without other contributions, do not qualify a contributor for authorship are acquisition of funding, general supervision of a research group, or general administrative support, and writing assistance, technical editing, language editing, and proofreading. Those whose contributions do not justify authorship may be acknowledged individually or together as a group under a single heading, e.g., clinical investigators or participating investigator. And their contributions should be specified, e.g., served as scientific advisors, critically reviewed the study proposal, collected data, provided and cared for study patients, participated in writing or technical editing of the manuscript. Because acknowledgement may imply endorsement by acknowledged individuals of a study's data and conclusions, editors are advised to require that the corresponding author obtain written permission to be acknowledged from all acknowledged individuals. So, whenever you participate in a joint study, it would be best to discuss authorship up front. It would save you unnecessary embarrassment. And whenever you find yourself in an ambivalent or conflictual situation, consult your discipline's code of ethics or share the problem with us. We will help you. Click below to join our course, Land Your Academic Career. Until the next time, I am Professor Gad Yair.